Okay, so today is November 17th, 2021. My name is Sebastiano Cocco, and I'm with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. And today we're in Bethlehem Baptist Church in Palatka, Florida, and I'm interviewing alums of Central Academy High School. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, what's your name, where were you born, etc.
All right, I'm Wanda Williams Brown. I was born in Jacksonville, Florida in 1950. My father became a teacher at Central Academy in 1953, and he moved the family from Jacksonville to Palatka in 1954. I attended Central Academy up to 1966, where I then was one of the first black students at Palatka Senior High School. But my father taught the entire time at Central Academy until he went to Palatka High School. Central Academy then became a different school. So I've grown up in Palatka. I finished and went to college at Florida A&M in Tallahassee. Lived in various cities and states, returned to Palatka in 1985 and began to work with the Department of the state of Florida, with the Department of Children and Families, where I worked for 30 years until I retired.
Wow.
And so now I'm retired here in Palatka.
Congrats. I hope that's been good. I hope that's been good.
It's been very good.
All right. Would you like to say, did you happen to attend kindergarten here?
Yes. When we moved here, there was Mrs. Lane, who passed a few years ago, but taught kindergarten, or had a kindergarten for, 70 years maybe. And so I went to Miss Lane's kindergarten. Before I started school. I actually started school because the kindergarten was right across the street from the elementary school, and my dad's classroom was on the back side, and I would slip off and go to his classroom, because he taught junior and senior kids. He was a vocational teacher.
Okay.
He taught tailoring. And so I would slip off. So at some point, they just let me start school, because it was like I was there more than I was at kindergarten.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. And so when did you, was there elementary school after that, just in a similar location?
Yep, just the very school, right across the street, Central Academy Elementary School. And then that was through 6th grade. And then I started 7th grade at Central Academy High School.
Okay. Can I ask, did the elementary school, is it generally known as Old Central by any chance? Does anybody refer to it as that, or? Because I've read it in the papers, so I was just wondering if anybody ever.
I don't really think so. I think it was Central Academy Elementary.
That's okay.
And the high school was Central Academy High School.
So that's what you folks called it.
Right. And it's only been since neither one are in existence that people, I think, keep referring to old Central Academy. But it was always Central Academy Elementary, Central Academy High School.
Okay, that's beautiful. Ma'am, would you like to introduce yourself, where you were born, where did you grow up?
Okay, my name is Thelma Spell. When I went to school, I was Thelma Ford. I was born in Grandin, Florida. We moved to East Palatka in 1946 from Grandin. I was 5, going on 6. I started school at the elementary school in East Palatka, and I went from the 1st through the 8th grade in East Palatka. And then when I got to the 9th grade, I came to Central Academy, and I went to Central Academy, the new Central Academy. And I started in 1954, and I finished in 1958. From there, I went to the Army as a WAC, and I did 4 years in the Women's Army Corps, and then I got out, and then I worked for the Blue Cross for a year, and then I started working for the government as a civil service employee in 1968. I worked for the government for 33 years. Started in 1968, and I retired in 1997. Also, I was in the military reserves for the Navy, and I was there for about 19 years. And I retired from there in 1995, I think.
Wow.
Also, my dad had he actually had something like a farm, but it was small. We have 10 acres in East Palatka. So he farmed that for all of my life, or his life, I should say. And then I moved to Jacksonville in 1963. And I stayed there until 1990. I moved up back to East Palatka. I moved to Jacksonville in 1963, and I moved back to East Palatka in 1993. And I've been there since. I attended the new Central Academy from 1954 to 1958. I think I said that before. And we was the first class that attended the new Central Academy. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, so I guess, with you folks before, they mentioned their teachers were really important because they say the teachers were part of the community, and that if you went to school, you're not seeing someone that is just there at school, you're seeing someone that was there at church, someone that knows your parents, might have even taught your parents. And yeah, there's a funny moment when they said they kept on calling someone by their mother's name instead of by their own name. And so I was wondering if there's any teachers or perhaps even like a principal that y'all remember like fondly, or folks that were important in your education journey, even starting from elementary or even just in Central as a high school, like whichever.
Well, I'd have to say I have especially unique memories because the principal at the elementary school, Mr. Mullen, my mother was his secretary.
Oh.
And so consequently, I spent a lot of time knowing him both in school and out of school. And one of the things that was very unique about this community at the time, the teachers were very much a part of the community. Whatever activities kids were involved in, I was in the band. My brother played sports and was a statistician for the football team. But our parents were at everything. The football games, the basketball games, the dances, the anything that the churches had, they were there. And it was almost all the teachers. It wasn't just, when you went to an activity for the school, there were always the teachers that were kept the money at the, took up the money at the gate, or they were the sponsors, or so they knew all the children and they knew all the parents. So part of what was so unique for us, we grew up in an era knowing that we were very important. We never felt that we were subpar to other children, even though I knew certain things, like we had old books, because my dad, one of his jobs was to gather up all the books at the end of the year to see what they had and then try to get books for the new year. So I knew sometimes that the books came from the predominantly white school.
Right.
And we had the used books. But I also know that because those teachers were innovative and they looked for things to help children, they found stuff. They went out of their way.
They got creative.
To find encyclopedias now y'all do.
Oh, I grew up with them, so it's all good.
With encyclopedias
Yeah.
and all those kind of things. Those were books that these teachers had in their homes as well as in the school library that they used, and that was where they garnered other information. So it wasn't just somebody else's secondhand information. My house is back up to the school. So, and at that time, there's a fence there now, but when I grew up, there was no fence. So I walked out my back door
Straight to school.
right into my dad's classroom and then into my classroom. And that's what the kids did. And when children wanted to participate in things and do things, my father, the other teacher fathers in the neighborhood, took children back and forth. If they lived in Interlochen or East Palatka and they wanted to play football, they played football until 6:30 or 7 o'clock. They took them home in their personal vehicles. There was no school bus to take kids home. So they were truly, truly invested in. So if you talk to people in this town in particular, they have a real rich sense of who they are and what the community is, and a great self-worth.
Right.
We were given a great self-worth. And a lot of children went off to college from the high school. I can remember my dad, some kid needing to go, and he and my mom in his closet getting a sweater because he was going to a colder climate to go to school, and trying to find him a sweater or a jacket or something to give to him to help him, on his way. And that was kind of how it was. When I first went off to college, anybody that came from Palatka would stop, take me to dinner, or give me $5 for something. I don't know that happens as much now as it used to, but
So did you always hope? Sorry to interrupt, but did you always hope to go to college as a whole, as a class of children? Was that always like, y'all can go to college?
Yeah, but there were just certain expectations. I'm pretty sure any child that was reared or was the offspring of one of the teachers, it was just automatically expected. You didn't have an option. I was a very adventurous child and needed to do other things, and so I did. But my original finished high school, you go to college. That was just it. And my father would say that you don't have a choice. That's what you do. You have to work at becoming, and not that he was down on people who did not, but there were just certain expectations.
Right.
And even those kids that he taught that weren't going to college, the expectation is that, you will be a good citizen. And whatever job you have, you will be the best at it, no matter what it is. The little saying was, if you're going to be a hobo, you'll be the best hobo there is.
My experience with the teachers were that they were really good teachers. I remember Mrs. Ragdale, Miss Pinksney, Miss Hardy, and Miss Williams. Those are the teachers that I remember, and also Mr. Wright. Mr. Wright and Miss Ragsdale had a lot to do with what I did in life. Miss Ragsdale taught mathematics, which is the whole scene. She went from regular math through trigonometry. Now, when I got to high school, they wasn't offering trigonometry, and I went through geometry. But she really influenced me because she helped me to be able to pass the test for the Army and stuff. And in my life, as I went through, because I did a lot of math, and I always liked the math. So she taught me a lot, and Miss Ragsdale didn't play. She did not play. You got her lesson if you didn't get nobody else's. So I have a lot of a respect for her, and I really appreciate her. And Mr. Wright taught me how to type. And he really taught us how to type through our fingers, not through looking at the keyboard.
Right.
You know. So he had a lot to do with my life. And the other teachers did too, the English teachers and all of that. Now, I only went to Central Academy for 4 years. I came from East Palatka. I had to ride the bus. Now, when I started in East Palatka, we lived about at least a mile from the school. And we had to walk to school. Well, my mama was instrumental in getting the bus to come down into our neighborhood because we lived out on the farm. So by the time I got to the 3rd grade, we could catch a bus. And the bus, my high school bus, I guess I had to walk a half a mile to catch it. And of course, I had to run a lot because I was always late. But anyway, it was really interesting. I don't know that much about Palatka. I still don't know that much about Palatka because I was brought up in the country. And my daddy didn't allow us to just go. You wasn't allowed as kids. Like kids now, they travel and they go here and go there. Well, you had a certain time to be home. You had a certain place you go. And that was it. And most of the kids in East Palatka was the same way. You know, so I don't know that, like I say, I don't know that much about Palatka that much. I just know the school and the kids that I met when I was there. But Central Academy was really educational. It was really, they push you to finish school. And of course, a lot of times we had to, they even went to, because back then, because I was raised on the farm, and I know that during that time, during the summertime or the springtime, like from April through May, you picked up potatoes. And then they allowed us to come back to take a break. And then you came back and finished up in the summer. And that went on for a couple of years. A lot of times we worked on the farm, picking up potatoes, doing cabbage, going out to the fields, doing the potatoes and whatever was in season. And that's how you earn your money. And then, you know, the parents expected you to finish school. And once you finished school, you had to do something. So you had to make up your mind. I knew my family could not afford for us to go to college. So I went to the Army, you know, to get my education. My brother, he went to the Army and came back and went to the college. I went to college for a little while. But it was interesting. I mean, I look at now, you know, the kids don't appreciate any of the things that we did. So that's my experience.
I'm curious real quick just to ask you. So you said for the test, was that still the VAB test, or was there a different test to get in the Army?
The Army has its own testing.
Army has its own testing?
For you to go in. And you had to make a certain grade in order to be accepted in, especially women. Now, men, if they wasn't of age, if they volunteered, had to pass the test. But if they was drafted, they didn't have to pass that test. But, and it covered everything, you know, from the 1st grade through the 12th grade. So it had a lot of math, it had English, and it had to match up everything.
I'm curious, how did you, because in my school, at least, recruiters were there constantly.
Right.
But when did you first learn of the Army? Was that in school? Was that outside of school?
I actually learned from my brother when he went in. And it was something that it encouraged me to go in. So I didn't have a really recruiter. I went to them to go in. And then I received a recruiter, and he followed me through.
Were there any teachers that helped you out with the process? Anybody specifically you had to? Wow.
I just had to go.
Where was the office, I wonder? Did you have to go to Jacksonville? Or?
No, they had one right downtown here. It was right there where the, what is that right there? The Putnam County, I think it's the way to go to pay the water bill.
Okay.
It was in that building.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
And the recruiter had to come. He came to pick me up from miles in the country, and he took me to Jacksonville. You know, after I passed the test and everything, because you had to go and do your physical exams and everything in Jacksonville. So he had to take me to Jacksonville, and I had passed the test. I passed my physical, and so he went through me with all of this, and then I had to stay overnight, and the next morning I had to catch a train, and I went to Fort McClellan, Alabama. That was my first time traveling, and especially by myself.
Wow, and it's quite the story, yeah. You said you've also, do you also have any experience in the military? I see in your shirt it says Navy, but...
Grandmother.
Is that exact? So I was like...
Yeah, I have a granddaughter that's currently in the Navy.
Okay.
And she's out in San Diego, California. And she's getting ready to ship out now for a 9-month deployment.
Wow.
So, that's right, I could tell that. Once I got through basic training, then I had advanced training, and then they shipped me to Fort Hood, Texas. I stayed there for a year, and I requested for overseas assignment, and I got France. So I stayed in France for a year and a half, and it was really an experience. And then when I was in the reserves, we go on our 2 weeks, and I was in a VP 62, which was a patrol squadron that went out and searched for submarines, and I was a storekeeper. So I got to go to where they went. And so on my 2 weeks, we always went. We had 3 different places that we would go. We went to Bermuda, we went to Rhodes, Spain, and we went to Lodges, which is in the Azores. Wow. So that was an experience too. I got to travel. And so even when we were there, you could also take, when you wasn't working, you can go out to different places. And so that was an experience for me.
Instead, would you say, sorry, like, just, I hate to, like, repeat myself. If I did, I'm sorry. But you say you went to college. Was that afterward, or like right after high school, or?
Yeah, right after high school.
And what was the because I had to take my SAT. I wonder, what was the college exam stuff like? Was it?
Yeah, we had to take ACTs, SATs at that time. Remember having to take it twice because I needed my score to be higher.
I took it like 5 times, don't worry.
But...
and were you able to take it at the Central?
Yeah, the school, the
school
test
provided.
was offered, at the school. I don't remember now whether or not it was like, now they do them on Saturdays and the kids have to, I don't even remember how all that worked out, but I know that it was offered at the school, and so a lot of us were able to take the. I want to say both of them, or maybe it was just one at the time.
Right.
I don't really remember that, but I know there was an entrance test, and I took it the second time because I wanted the score to be higher, because the higher you got, the better chance that you had with scholarships and different things like that.
And I wonder how would. Which colleges were you interested in? Because, I mean, obviously teachers, they had their degrees, so I wonder if that was an influence, or if you just had heard of a certain school that was like, I want to go there, or how did you make up your mind? How did you even begin thinking about, like, I want to go here?
Well, I went to Florida A&M because that's where my dad went.
Yeah.
To Florida A&M. And ironically, we have a family story. His nephew was a president of Bethune-Cookman College, and his wife and my dad went to A&M at the same time. So when he became the president, it was kind of like, by the time my children came along, it was like he didn't care which school we went to, just so long as we went to one or the other. Right. It was kind of that way. But yes, the teachers all kids knew what school they graduated from. Kids knew which teachers went to Florida A&M. They knew which teachers went to Bethune-Cookman. They knew which teachers went to Florida Memorial. Those were the local schools. And most of them went to historically black colleges. There were some teachers who got like their advanced degrees, like their masters in different things in different schools. Miss Asia got her master's at Temple in Philadelphia. And she spent the summer, and her daughter, who became an educator, that's in my class, tells the story all the time about how they spent the summer in Philadelphia while their mom was in school. My dad got his master's at A&M. So my brother always talks about going to during the summer to spend time at A&M with him. Now, when he graduated and went off to college, he went to Southern in Louisiana. Then I have a sister that went to Tennessee State in Nashville. So, but yes, the kids all knew what schools the teachers went to, and they knew the rivalries between Cookman and A&M. And
were there football games you even attended as kids, or did you hear about? Was there like a big thing about that?
But football was a big part of our growing up, because kids that were either in the band or played football, there were all kinds of, I don't even know what to call it, different kind of games that garnered attention, groups of people. So Miami used to have this big classic, and I don't even remember who played. I don't remember what football team played, but it was a college football team. I don't remember who. But Orange Blossom Classic. But they would take kids from different schools in Florida, the bands and things would go, and you would march in this huge parade, and then some kids would go to the game and some would not. That would just be their trip. So there were all kinds of things. When Bethune-Cookman had their homecoming, all the local schools participated in their homecoming parade and probably went to the game. And so, like I said, the community, particularly African-American communities back during that time, they made sure that kids knew about things that went on in other places other than just our little community. And it wasn't just our community that created them. Other communities created them, and that was how they kept them together. Because, when we grew up, the black schools played the black schools. We didn't go to the white schools. They didn't come to us. If there was a parade, it was a parade for the black school. White school had their parades. Everything was very, very separate. So it wasn't until the 70s that things started integrating here in this county, but really integrating. Like I said, I was one of the first black students to go to Palatka High School. There were 8 of us that went, and which was a very unique experience. And so I have much difficulty now that there's racial issues, because there shouldn't be. I already did that. I already fought that fight. There shouldn't even be a fight, but there still is. So, needless to say.
Yeah, and I do wonder, in terms of what you were saying about the different communities, folks before have shared that when they went to Central, they grew up in Palatka, but they were like the Melrose kids, the kids from Grandin, the kids from like anywhere in the county. They came here, and it was like they were from here. It was everybody was taken care of, and so I was wondering, when was was there already like in elementary school you were meeting kids that were like from much separate areas, or was there maybe like in middle or high school? How did because what were their relations with kids that were like outside of town?
My experience.
Well, you grew up in the farm,
I came from East Palatka. So we had kids coming all the way from Crescent City. We had Crescent City. We had Pomona Park. We had Satsuma, San Mateo, all the outlying areas coming from that side of town. As far as Palatka, no. So you did meet kids from different areas, and you still kind of find out about those kids. I still wonder what happened to all of my classmates. Now, when I came to high school, they did not have like the people who came from Crescent City. They finally got a high school in Crescent City. So those kids that came like from Pomona Park on back went to Crescent City, and the rest of us came to Palatka. So yes, we did have kids from all over, even when I was in high school, because they had kids coming from like where I was from, Grandin, Putnam Hall, all around Monroe, Melrose, not Monroe, Melrose, and those areas came to Palatka because you only had the 2 high schools. So in Putnam County at that time.
I wonder.
And I'm a little bit older than she is. So by the time she came along, they had different schools. They had different high schools. So when I came along, we only had the 2, and we only had 1 high school for a long while. And so you had kids from all over Putnam County coming to that 1 black school.
Wow.
So it just met a lot of kids from different places.
That's beautiful. Another thing that really sticks out to me, so you've said your dad taught vocational and he taught tailoring, you said? And so, I mean, even for me growing up, that was something that I heard of my parents, my grandparents. Those were the kinds of things that they would teach in school, but I was never taught that. I don't know anybody who's like, within my age group that gets taught that. And so
that was kind of the end of it. They had, it's funny because there was
They had tailoring. They had
brick mason, woodworking.
Yeah, woodworking, all of that kind of stuff. Vocational. They call it vocational into the.
So you could choose. You had the option. You could choose which one you wanted to do. And was that important for y'all to choose? Like, was there something that you were like, I want to do this? Like, once I get to this grade, I want to do this.
Well, the kids that did it, yes. It was very important. Those kids that were interested in tailoring, they took that class for 2 years. And I have a friend right now who, every time I see him, he's like, I'm still sewing. And it's because he took that class. That was never his main occupation, but he has always done it as his little side piece,
like an hobby,
clothes or making something for somebody. And it's because of that class. And the kids that took brick masonry or carpentry, they had projects. They did all kinds of different stuff. Somebody would, in the neighborhood, would want something done, a barbecue pit or something, and that would be one of their projects. But they somehow made projects for them so that they would have the experience in building and what have you. So, but once Central Academy was no longer, and it was all just Palatka High, the vocational kind of doing. They had, my dad retired several years after he went to Palatka High School, but one of the issues he had was he was considered a tailor. He was not a home economics teacher. And so, because they were phasing out the vocational, they wanted him to teach a sewing class. And that just was not his forte. Because that's very different. Being a tailor is very different from just being able to sew.
Right.
And he didn't really like that, and he hated that kids didn't have that opportunity. Not that home economics was a good thing to have in schools, and they had home economics, but he was separate and different from home economics. So, and I think now they have welding.
Yeah, I know they got welding.
I don't even know if there's anything else that they do vocational ed wise anymore.
Yeah. No, for us, it was always, I mean, there's a certain school because I went to high school in Southwest Florida, and so there's like a big school. It's like, oh, if you want to go here, but it's far away, you'd have to move, it's not accessible. And so it really seems as though the fact that kids are able to do it right here within the school that we're going to already, that really seemed to have helped a lot of people because not everybody was going to go to college, obviously. So
Right.
I hear a lot of people, that's how they got their start in the workforce. They were, wow, that's amazing. So were there what was like your favorite or one of your favorite subjects in school that you were like, wow, I love taking this, even after, or I don't know, maybe even after you go to college, it's like, oh,
I don't know.
is there anything that stands out like that?
I was a pretty all-around student, so I didn't really have a favorite. I liked classroom interaction, whatever was going on in the classroom. I was a real kind of a nerdy people person. Not so much that I wanted to be doing things, but I wanted to hear what you had to say. So that was kind of my interest. So I would say pretty much overall. Now, my siblings, my one sister was mathematics, who eventually became a CPA and just retired as a chief fiscal officer at the YMCA in West Palm Beach.
Wow.
But that was her thing. Anything with math, anything with numbers, that was just, who she was and what she wanted to do and that kind of thing. So, but like I said, I think so many teachers impacted us, not just because of the subject they taught, but because of who they were. And they just somehow made us know them, as people. Not just as, because you could go in a Ms. Ragdale's math class and she might be talking about something that happened, current affairs, and you might spend the whole hour. And no, she never let you spend the whole hour because she was going to get that math in no matter what, that particular teacher. But other teachers, I mean, whatever was going on in the world at the
chat
time,
about it.
There ended up being some learning and some conversations and some communication about those kind of things. So I think that's what I liked about school. It was just, you never knew what the next day was going to bring. It was, there could always be something different.
Wow. Yeah. How about you,
My favorite, of course, was mathematics. Well, anything with numbers or figures. So, and then that went all the way through my life because I wound up being an industrial engineer technician. Wow. So we had to do a lot of figuring because we had to do interviews and we had to make up how the people are going to sit in an office and how they work proficiently. So you still had numbers. I always had numbers. And my basic thing is that when she taught us, she made sure you knew exactly. And she had you to write. You didn't just put down just numbers. You had to write out how you got to your process. Yeah, the end. So you had to write down the process. So therefore, you learn everything. And it helps you with your writing too. So it really was really instrumental for my career. So
they made sure that you learned.
Yes. And I mean, she didn't let you slack off either. It wasn't like you would go in there and just play around. You would go do her
You had to
stuff.
be focused.
Yes.
So I wonder, is there anything else specifically that you like to bring up about your experiences? Anything else you like to share for the record? Perhaps I was wondering if you'd be wanting to just mention your sister's name so that whoever's going to listen to this interview is going to know who she is.
Oh, my sister, Carolyn Williams Smith, like I said, just recently retired as the CFO at the YMCA in West Palm Beach. Taught at when it was Palatka Central, just at the beginning of integration, I guess. She'd finished college and had worked in Atlanta, and she was like trying to figure out what she wanted to do. And my dad convinced her to come here and take a job, which she did not like very much. She then went on to teach at Bethune-Cookman for a while, but then eventually got married and went to West Palm Beach, and that's where she's been. And but once again, I think the influences of, you know, our parents, who, you know, both were in the school system, and of our neighbors, you know, they just made you feel like, I don't ever remember not thinking I couldn't do something. I don't ever remember doubting that I couldn't be whatever it was I wanted to be, because that's just kind of the way the school worked in the community and with the children to make them feel that way. I don't think that there may have been a few children, I'm sure, who had issues and just weren't sure, but even they were confident in, they weren't sure what they wanted to do. You know, that they could make the decision to do that. And, you know, now I listen to children, oh, they lost, they got to find themselves. I don't think we were lost. I think we pretty much knew what we needed to do. You know, you, like she said, you finish high school, you either going to college, going to military, you're going to get a job. And you didn't have an option. There was no option.
Got something to do. Just pick one out of three.
Yeah, but, you know, sadly, this kind of history, you know, my great-grandchildren won't have any idea. We constantly talk about my dad and the school and what happened, so that they'll know. But the younger ones will never know what we're talking about, you know, because he passed away, and they won't have those experiences. But they certainly will get the knowledge passed down from us, because we talk about it a lot.
It's really important.
I mean, we probably never have. I live in the original home. That when we moved in that house in 1955, that's where I lived currently. And so I now have grandchildren that live with me in that home. So they know, you know, we talk about granddaddy looking out this window. And somebody mentioned the other day, talking about, yeah, it's a fence, but we used to just walk through the backyard. They did. Kids just walked through the backyard to get to the school.
That's beautiful. How about you, ma'am? Anything else you'd like to add? Anything else you'd like to touch on?
Well, most of the kids that came up during my time really excelled after they finished school. My brother, he went to the service, he got out. Like I said, he went to college, and then he moved to Maryland, where he became a
Psychologist?
Social
worker?
Yeah, and a psychologist at the end. So, and a lot of the people that I know, all of them advanced on to do great things from Central Academy. So a lot of the kids now, they think you're supposed to give them something. So they don't push to do like we had to push and do. And that's probably a little bit of our fault, and then the next generation after us, you know, as they get weaker and weaker, they're not doing the same thing we did. Like she said, the teachers taught us, like, politics, how important voting was, the different parties, and they told you history from way back up to the time during this time. So a lot of it, all the stuff that the kids have to do now, they have to do their own research. They're not taught that or given that opportunity.
That's cool.
Open their mind up so they will go and look those things up. So I can't say they're going to be lost. They're not going to be lost. So
it's just going
to be different from what we came up
find
with.
A different way, a new way.
Yeah, and so we say they lost because we old.
Right.
They're not doing the same thing we did. So that they're going to make it.
They just gotta button themselves a new compass.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We need the compass. They already got it.
Oh, okay.
And so I see even down to the babies, like my great-grandbaby, they're going to be push buttons. They start out pushing buttons.
Yep.
You know, so, and they know how to, you got the babies at 1 year old pushing buttons. So they're not going to have that knowledge, but they're going to have the knowledge of whatever they need to get along. You know, and they're going to be a little bit smarter than us. Because I can't do the things they do now. But anyway, I think each generation is going to have their own thing. They're going to have their own challenges or whatever, you know, so let's just hope that they do the right things.
Yeah, and I guess we'll try our best to also just keep the memory and what you have shared so that folks will still know about the history so that they can maybe, you know, it's not.
And my mother was instrumental in getting us through high school. She graduated from college, and she graduated as a high. When she graduated, she was cum laude.
Oh, wow.
So when everybody in her school and the older people remember that, so they kind of helped us to that level. So they didn't let us, just
Drop
do
out.
any old little thing and get away with it. So it just really, and you don't have that now. So they'll make it.
Well, it's been great hearing your stories. Thank you again so much for sharing them. Yeah, thank you. Good? Okay.
Now I have a question. Start off specific. Can I ask a question about